So there's only three things that you really need to consider if you're bidding for tenders. Now there's hundreds of care tenders out there. There's supported living, day services, domiciliary, the list goes on across all of England and Wales, right? Doncaster, London, Birmingham, Manchester. I'm not gonna list them all. But the point being, there are hundreds. And a lot of them, everyone can apply for it. That makes people think that because everyone can apply for it, they're going to apply for it. Because why not? But actually, you're wasting your time, your money, your resources, your energy, right? Whereas you can actually just think about things strategically. Simply consider these three things, right? Obviously, there's a lot of things to consider, but we don't want to bog ourselves down into things that are not as much of a priority, right? So make it simple for yourself and think about number one, your location. Where exactly are you? Imagine that you're the registered manager. Where are you based? Where's your office? Because that will determine the logistics, the mileage, your capacity, and the resources you actually have to deliver those services. Number two, I know people might say, oh, but if it's supported living, I can just get my stuff over there and then it's fine. But even then, a lot of councils now are being very strict and ruthless with the service delivery, that people are losing packages because the consistency of the service is not up to scratch or up to standard. Because the registered managers are in Scotland and the accommodation is in Wales, simply because they want to get the packages. But actually, the closer or as close as you can get to being involved in the day-to-day running in those supported living packages is also essential to maintaining the relationship with those councils and making sure the service is kept to a very, very high standard. So always think about the location, irrespective of what kind of package it is. Make sure you're reasonably close enough, or at least you can get there in case of emergency. Another thing to consider now is there a demand for my services or for your services in the area, right? So this might seem obvious because, there's a tender, so clearly there must be a demand, but that's not always the case. There are loads of providers right now that are just chilling on frameworks or tenders and getting absolutely no work. Some of them have been on there for years. I spoke to a lady who's been on a tender. I'm not going to mention tender because everyone's experience might be different. But she's been there for about 3 years and got one package on there, right? But that tender is still open and they're taking on more and more providers. But this is just not the lady. This has happened so many times, so many people on different tenders. If you're watching this, you might know someone who experiences yourself. So again, understand, is there an actual demand for your services in the area before you actually bid for that tender? Wasting your resources and your time, blah, blah, blah. Consider this first before making the bid. And of course, the last thing should be obvious, but a lot of people skip this because they just want to get on a tender. But the last thing is to look at the pricing. Every council pays differently. So understand how much the council are paying for that tender before you bid on it. Of course, we're all doing this to be profitable, so it's not worth you bidding on tender to make a loss or even just to break even. It's probably not worth your investment. So consider the cost on that tender before bidding on it. This could save you a lot of hassle and actually a lot of money in the long run.